when we closely, as a company, look at how e-commerce as a sector will perform during festive, and I think when we look at those forecasts, those are like almost the best performance in the last 5 years or so is what we are expecting. So in terms of growth numbers, you have to put some numbers to this. It will be around a 20 to 25% of year-on-year growth versus last festive period, which is, like I said, almost the best in the last 5 years. So at least from an e-commerce perspective, where we have a deeper quantitative view of how the performance would be, I think it definitely looks promising.
So is the e-commerce sector of India going to see a more significant upside or uptick from consumer spending during this festive season as compared to the traditional brick and mortars, for instance, especially given the fact that e-commerce has been a growing trend in India even before the GST reforms were introduced and even during the COVID-19 pandemic, if you go that far back even. Is this going to be the sector to watch versus, say, the traditional brick and mortars?
So definitely see e-commerce is driven by multiple factors, is on a different growth spree when compared to the offline retail, considering both unorganized and organized. And there are factors that are hinting towards that, right? I think when we are looking at e-commerce platforms traffic on some of the mini festive days, like the 15th August sale that happened some time back, or certain platforms have these mini festive events that happen once a day within a month. I think that there has been a decent uptick seen on e-commerce platform on those days already. That basically hints towards a decent festive demand that consumers have leading up to the main festive season that's out there, right? Secondly, when we also look at some of the, let's say, search queries on e-commerce platforms, on the type of deals the consumers are searching for, the type of products they are looking for, it definitely hints towards a significant pent-up demand that may be existing among consumers, and that may be just relayed out in the e-commerce festive period that's gonna be upcoming, right? So those were a few strong indicators why we believe the forecast will be such. In addition, I think, and you must have followed this, there are some of these unique e-commerce models that are picking up really fast in India. Now, this includes the likes of quick commerce, and also the likes of value commerce, which are serving different ends of the household pyramid in India. But then I think they have been growing at, let's say, even in the BAU period, expanding at a significant explosive pace, right? And so that momentum is going to be carried to the festive period as well. So when you put all of that together, it definitely hints towards a much stronger performance for e-commerce, hinged by both, I think, the pent-up demand of broader consumption trend that I just spoke about, and also the this emergence of new models which are actually growing at an explosive pace, and all of that will also aid into the forecast I just spoke about.
Now, this is interesting that you pointed out, Kushal, because it's not just important to note how strong the Indian consumer is in terms of confidently spending, but how they spend. And if it is indicated that e-commerce is really going to pick up by a huge clip during this festive season, driven in part by those GST reforms, is this a signal that perhaps the consumer trends and how Indians are spending is indeed changing more towards digital, more towards online? And could this mean actually some headwinds for the more traditional brick and mortars that we're seeing out there?
So, I would say that if you look at the e-commerce penetration of India's retail market today, it is at a 7%. So almost, let's say, 7% of total retail products are purchased in terms of value are purchased online, right? In some form, right? So there is a significant headroom for e-commerce to penetrate further. Having said that, 93% is still served by offline retail, right? And there are interesting models within offline retail as well, which are doing equally well, right? So I think India as a market, when you look at the GDP per capita at this point, the consumption trajectory at this point, right, there's a significant headroom for the overall consumption pie itself or the retail pie itself to expand from here on. Of course, within that, the channel dynamics will change a bit when you compare against a market like China, wherein you have 30 to 40% e-commerce penetration. There's a clear headroom for e-commerce to grow further. But I won't call it a headwind per se, because I think looking at the pace of expansion of our GDP, consumption, and retail in general, I think the overall pie of retail itself is expanding decently fast. And of course, the organized models within that, whether it's organized offline or organized online, which we call as e-commerce, are likely to benefit a lot more because India traditionally has been a unorganized retail country, right? So almost 80% of retail consumption still happens through local mom and pop stores. So of course, that shift will happen toward in the favor of organized models, and that will continue to happen over the next few years. And e-commerce is one of the key beneficiaries of that particular shift.
Well, whether it be online or offline, it seems that the GST reforms are going to provide a significant boost during this festive season, Kushal, at least based on what many are expecting. But there are some concerns that because of the depth of the GST reforms and the savings that might be introduced, it might mean that there might be shallower discounts during this festive season, which is also very important for this particular period. What is Redseer seeing and noticing about the possibility that discounts might not be as deep as they are because of the savings that the GST reforms will already introduce?
So the answer would definitely vary at a category level, right? If you look at the e-commerce festive pie, right? The top three categories in there are mobiles, appliances, and fashion. And then you have the other small ticket categories like beauty, grocery, home and furniture, so on and so forth, right? Now, for mobiles, the GST rates haven't changed. They remain at 18%, right? So there, the discounts will remain very typical to how they are with the festive season. And e-commerce is also a destination to purchase mobiles through the year during the festive. So that will continue to be the same. In case of appliances, definitely there has been a significant rate cut, which will automatically bring down the appliance volumes. Having said that, appliances, at least the large appliances, haven't had a great summer cycle in India. So there is some bit of an excess inventory that's there in the market, which brands will be pushing to release through the festive season, right? So our belief is that there won't be a significant holdback on our discounts in appliances, considering there is that existing inventory that's out there which will need to be released before the year ends. So considering that, I think the discounts are likely to stay broadly in the same range as they were planned in this category too. I think fashion is a small ticket category, so doesn't get as much impacted by GST as what mobiles or appliances would have been. So there, we believe things will remain very similar to what they were in a pre-GST period, right? So all in all, we believe that discounts will stay largely consistent. Yes, few brands here and there could look at holding back some of the additional value given to consumers given GST will anyways bring that down. But at a broad level, they are likely to stay in the similar range as the pre-GST plan.
Kushal, we just have about a minute to go now, but I just wanted to zero in on something in the report that indicated core festive categories that are worth watching out for. Can you help us understand what those core festive categories are that consumer watchers need to be aware of when they're looking at the impact of GST during this festive season?
I think, like I said, I think these three mobiles, electronics and appliances, and fashion, at least from an e commerce perspective, they contribute at least anywhere between 70 to 80% of the overall festive GMV. And hence, they actually determine the growth in these categories, actually determines how the overall festive performance for the market or a channel will be. Of course, there is a tail of categories which are growing much faster than these because these are more stable ones, but they will still continue to form the core pie and hence called the core ones.